So guys, in the making of this gown, I'll be using these materials you see here: my scissors, tape, chalk, then this is my gum stay which I'll be using for interfacing. Then I have my doll face bridal satin here. I'll be using this in the neck area and the center front. Then I have my African print. I have about 3 years of African print that I'll be using for this gown, so I'll just go ahead to keep this aside to work on my main fabric. So I'll just go ahead to open it to the right side like this. Then I'm going to fold it into two as you see me doing. Then after that, I'll go ahead to fold it in again like this. Then after this, guys, you see that I have two of the sides folded. So if you are trying this out, yours should also be folded this way. So the next thing I'll go ahead to do now is to take my measurement from my shoulder line down to the length of this gown, which is 51 inches. So I added 2 extra allowance to that, making 53 inches. Now if you want yours to be longer than mine, you can go ahead to add to the amount of fabric you are working with. Instead of the 3 yards, you just go ahead to fold in maybe 4 yards, the amount of fabric that will be able to cover your length as you want it. So the next thing I'll go ahead to do, from the shoulder line, I'll measure down to my shoulder to nipple measurement. I have 9 inches. I'll just mark it. Then I'll go ahead to mark my waistline, which is 15 inches. Then still from the shoulder line, I'll mark down to my hip line, which is 22 inches. Then after that, guys, I'll just have to straighten my lines. So if I have done that, guys, the next thing I'll go ahead to do is to go to the folded side of my fabric like this. Then I'll go ahead to divide my shoulder measurement by 2. My shoulder measurement is 15 inches divided by 2. I have 7.5 inches. So I'll just go ahead to mark it there. Then still on that point, I'll mark to my desired sleeve length. So I'll be making use of a sleeve length of 8 inches. So I'll just go ahead to add a 1/4 of an inch to that for folding allowance. So I'll just go ahead to mark it. Then I'll go ahead to mark the width of my neck area. That is how wide I want my neck area to be. So I want it to be 3 inches wide. Then for the back, I want it to be 1.5 inches deep. So I'll just go ahead to mark it and connect it like this with a curve as you see me doing. After that, guys, the next thing I'll go ahead to do right now is to extend this line from my sleeve down to that nipple line. Then from this place, I'm going to divide my bust measurement by 4. Then I'll mark it. Then I'll add 1 inch for ease, then 1 inch for seam allowance. As for the ease, you can go ahead to add as much as you want. If you want it to be very free, you can go ahead to add maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches ease. So I'll go ahead to mark my waistline. I'll go ahead to divide my waist measurement by 4. Then I'll add my 1 inch ease, then 1 inch seam allowance. I'll do the same thing for my hip line. I divided my hip measurement by 4 and gave it 1 inch ease and 1 inch seam allowance. So I'll just go ahead to take the measurements I have on here on the hip line. I have 10.25. So I'm just going to take this measurement like this. I'm going to place it this same way on the hemline as you see me doing. This is because it is a straight bubu gown. So I'll just go ahead to mark what I have in my hip line, and I'll have to mark it here also. Then I'll extend the line. I'll go ahead to connect the points together. Then coming to this armhole area, I'm just going to form something like a curve there to get rid of that sharp edge there. Then I wanted to say something about this sleeve area. So this particular side, if you want to add, you can go ahead to add your shoulder slope. If you want to add that, you go down by 1 inch, then you connect it to the neckline. But me, I don't want to do that. I don't want to alter the folded parts of the sleeve, so I just go ahead to work on it like that. But if you want to, you can go down by 1 inch and connect it to your neck area. So I'll just take my scissors now and cut out this place that I marked. So just from my shoulder line, I'll measure down to 16 inches. That is where I want my pockets to start. So I'll just go ahead to mark to 16 inches. You can go ahead to measure down 1 inch from your waistline. So I'll just go ahead to mark it like this. Then I will notch it. So from the hemline, I'll measure up to how long I want my slits to be. So I went ahead to measure 18 inches, which I later added to. Then I'll just go ahead to mark it like this. Then I'll make a notch there. So coming to the upper part of my neck area, I'll measure down to how deep I want my front neckline to be. So I measured 8 inches, which you can add or subtract from, but remember that this gown will not be having a zipper, so I'll advise you either add to it or make use of the 8 inches like that, so that you'll be able to wear your gown freely. So I'll just go in from this folded part. I'll go in by 2 inches, then I'll connect from the neck width to that 2 inches I marked like this with a slant. And the next thing I'll go ahead to do right now, if I have done that, is to pull out the back. Just watch how I'm doing this. So I just went ahead to dip in my hand like this and bring out the pieces inside. Then I'll go ahead to arrange it this way. So now I have my front and back separate. So the next thing I'll go ahead to do right now, so from these 2 inches I have here, I'll just go ahead to mark it down till I get to the hemline. And after that, I'll just go ahead to cut it out. Then I'll go ahead to measure what I have from the hemline to the neck area. I'll go ahead to measure it. What I had here was 57.5 inches. So I'll go ahead to bring in the doll face bridal satin. I'll be using the center front to replace the 2 inches I cut out. So I'll go ahead to cut out 2 bands of 59 inches long and 5 inches wide. Then I'll join it together and attach my gum stay to it. So when I was done joining and attaching my gum stay, so I took a measurement down to the end of the band, and I had 59 inches and 5 inches wide. So remember, this is in a fold. When I open it up, I'll be having about 218 inches in everything. So the next thing I'll go ahead to do now is to fold this back. So I'll just bring back my gown like this, then I'll open it up. I want to take the measurement around the neck area, that is from the back neck area to the front neck area. Before that, I'll go ahead to notch the center back. Then I'll place my tape from there to take a measurement around till I get to the depth of the front neck area. So I had 10.5 inches here, so I'll just go ahead to repeat it again to be sure of what I had. So if I'm sure of that, I'll go ahead to take this aside and bring back my center front. So from this folded part here, I'll measure down to that 10.5 inches I had around the neck area. I'll just go ahead to mark it here. Then coming to the down of this band, I'll go up by the length of my slit, which is 18 inches. I'll go ahead to mark it. So in between the two lengths I have here, I'll go ahead to divide it into two. I'll just take what I have here and divide it into two like this. So if I've gotten the midpoint, I'll just go ahead to mark it till I get to the other line. Now guys, I'll just go ahead to take this over to the sewing machine to stitch on this line I have here. Now I'm done stitching it down, so it's time to turn this over to the right side now. So I'll just come to these folded parts I have here, and I'll dip in my hands like this at the two ends. Watch closely to see what I'm doing here. Then I'll just go ahead to bring the two sides together like this. Then I'll fold it together like this. Then I'll bring it out. So I'll go ahead to align it like this all the way to the end. So this is the neck area now, and I have my slit here, as you can see. So I'll just go ahead to iron it out. Now I'm done ironing, and you can see how flat it is. So I'll just then locate the midpoint of my neck area, then I'll notch it there. Then I'll bring back my gown. I'll go ahead to open it to the front. So bringing in this satin fabric now, I'll go ahead to align the two notches I have in the neck area like this. Then I'll take my pin and then pin it down. Then from there I'll go ahead to pin down to one end of the gown, then the other. Now I'm done pinning it down, so I'll just take it over to the sewing machine to stitch it down. Then for the sleeve, I took the sleeve length and then went ahead to cut out two of these that I'll use to fold out the sleeve. So I'll just go ahead to do that. So you can see I've gone ahead to stitch it down, and I also went ahead to make a top stitch around. So I'll just go ahead to trim off this little rough edge I have here on the sleeve. I also went ahead to trim off the little excess I had at the end of front of this gown. And the next thing I'll do right now is to open up this gown to the wrong side. Then I'll fold it into two. So guys, you remember the 16 inches we notched for the pocket. So from there I'll measure down to 6 inches. This is how wide I want the entrance to my pocket to be. I'll go ahead to mark and notch it. So I also went ahead to cut out the pockets for this gown, and the length of the pocket is 10.5 inches. As for the wideness, I'll not be using that 6 inches I have here. I'll add 1 inch to that, making 7 inches. So I'll go ahead to mark out the wideness of this pocket, which is 7 inches. Then I'll cut it out. Now the next step is to insert the pocket. So I'll just go ahead to open up this gown. Then I'll open it up here like this. Then I'll go ahead to bring one of my pockets. Then I'll place it between that notch I have here, right sides facing each other like this. Then I'll go ahead to pin it down. Then after that, I'll repeat the same thing for this other side. Then I'll take it over to my sewing machine to stitch on the side I pin. Then I'll go ahead to do the same thing for this other side as well. So I've done that, and the next thing I'll go ahead to do now is to shape this gown. So in order to do that, you remember when we were cutting, I gave 1 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to mark on that 1 inch all the way to the end of this gown. Then if I get to the pockets area, I'm going in like this. Then I'll give it a curve towards the pocket end like this. Then I'll come out again and continue marking down my 1 inch till I get to the end of the gown. I'll just go ahead to repeat the same thing for this other side. Then I'll take it over to my sewing machine to stitch down the chalked part. So I've gone ahead to stitch it down. Just going to take my scissors and trim off the little excess I have. So guys, I also went ahead to fold in the end of this gown. So I just go ahead to open this to the right side for you to see how the gown is looking. So this was how the gown came out, and I like how it came out. So I have my slit and my pockets. So guys, this is all for the making of this gown. If you have not subscribed to this channel yet, please do that. Hit on the subscribe button, like and share my videos. See you in my next one. Bye.